Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Hello, boys and girls. Pete and I are here. Hello, boys and girls. How are you today? How are you all feeling? Feeling good? Maybe a little tired? We can have lots of feelings every day. Pete, I have a surprise for you. Don't you love surprises, boys and girls? I have a surprise for you. I have a friend. Wow, I love making new friends. Well, boys and girls, I found this friend for Pete. But Pete and boys and girls, my friend doesn't have a name. Will you help me make a name for our new finger puppet friend? If you have an idea for a name, will you please ask your grown-up to put the suggestion in the comments? Yes, I think that would be fun. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have another friend to say good morning with and read with. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's start this morning with our sound spelling cards. And good morning, Haley. Are you ready to practice some sounds and letters this morning? Okay. Our first picture is an octopus. The picture is octopus and the sound is ah. And I like to make my arms make an octopus move. Can your arms make an octopus move, Mackenzie? And we spell it with the letter O. Here we go. Sorry about that. Ready? Picture, octopus, sound, ah, spell O. Our next picture is of a submarine. Submarine. The sound is S, and I make the sign language letter S for S. But we can make this sound 4 ways. S, C-E, C-I, and C-Y. They all can say S. Good morning, Isabel. The next is a computer. The sound is K, computer, and we spell it C-K and C-K. In my classroom, when we do C-K, we go like this. C-K, and then we kick out our foot to remind us that C-K both make K sound. Kind of a fun thing to do with our bodies. Computer, K, spell C, spell K, C-K. Next is pilot, and the sound is P, comes right from the lips, P, and we spell it with P. All right, those are our sounds for today. Let's do them all together. Ready? Picture, octopus, sound, ah, spell O. Picture, submarine, sound, S, spell S, spell C-E, spell C-I, spell C-Y. Picture, computer, sound, K, spell C, spell K, spell C-K, K. Picture, pilot, sound, P, spell P. Good job with the sound spelling cards this morning, boys and girls. So, our first book is If You Give a Moose a Muffin. What do you think, Isabel? Would you like to read this book together? I think Hudson likes this book. This book is written by Laura Joffe-Numeroff and illustrated by Felicia Bond. Still amazes me how many great books were in the team's mind and to write and draw the pictures for. So if you give a moose a muffin, you can pretend to make moose antlers with your fingers. By Laura Joffe-Numeroff and illustrated by Felicia Bond. This book is dedicated for Alice and Emily, the 2 best sisters anyone could ever possibly want. And it's also dedicated for Antoine, Nahem, Jennifer, Santos, Brian, and Crystal. I have a friend, Antoine, all the way in France. I hope he's watching. If you give a moose a muffin. Here's the muffin. He'll want some jam to go with it. So you'll bring out some of your mother's homemade blackberry jam. Oh, so yum, Troy. Do you like blackberry jam? When he's finished eating the muffin, he'll want another one. And another. And another. When they're all gone, he'll ask you to make more. Would you ask to make more, Taryn? You'll have to go to the store to get some muffin mix. When he opens the door and feels how chilly it is, he'll ask to borrow a sweater. It'll be chilly outside. When he puts the sweater on, he'll notice one of the buttons is loose. He'll ask for a needle and thread. He'll start sewing. The button will remind him of the puppets his grandmother used to make. Sew in there. Mackenzie, do you see what's spilled? That happens sometimes. So he'll ask for some old socks. He'll make sock puppets. When they're done, he'll want to put on a puppet show. I like his puppet friends. He'll need some cardboard and paints. I wonder if Haley would like to put on a puppet show. Maybe Tisha. Then he'll ask you to help make the scenery. Making scenery would be fun, Emmanuel. When the scenery is finished, he'll get behind the couch, but his antlers will stick out. Do you see his antlers sticking out, Molly? You'll bring him a sheet from your bed. When he sees the sheet, he'll remember he wants to be a ghost for Halloween. He'll try it on and shout, "Boo!" It'll scare him so much he'll knock over the paints. Oh, Lori, what a mess. So he'll use the sheet to clean up the mess. Then he'll ask for some soap to wash it out. Don't you think that's a good idea, Paxton? He'll probably want to hang the sheet up to dry. He'll go outside to put it on the clothesline. Then he's out in the yard. When he's out in the yard, he'll see your mother's blackberry bushes. Where I live, blackberries grow wild all over the place. Do blackberries grow where you live? Seeing the blackberries will remind him of her jam. He'll probably ask you for some. And chances are, if you give him the jam, he'll want a muffin to go with it. Wow, that moose sure was busy with all those ideas for the day. I think putting on a puppet show would be fun. And so, I have a project idea for you, boys and girls. Do you have any old socks around your house? This is one of Sam's old socks, and it actually has a hole in it. So, and I don't know that we know where the match is, but maybe you have another sock like this. I wonder, could you do like the moose and find a way to turn it into a puppet friend and make a puppet show with it? Yes, I think that would be a fun project. If you do that, make sure that I'm looking around, I actually had a puppet I made a few years ago with some students, and I've been saving it for a long time. I made it with Hallie and Caden, but who knows where I set it down and getting ready for this morning. So anyway, if you have some old socks and some time today, maybe you can make a sock puppet and put on a puppet show. I love to see those pictures and videos of you doing the projects. Remember that you can just post them to my wall or send them to me through Messenger. Okay, thank you so much for that idea, and I'd love to see it. You guys ready for another book? Would you like another book, Haley? Okay, Troy, were you ready for another book? This one is called Chester the Brave. Chester learns a way to get past his fears. Chester is the raccoon from the story you probably know, The Kissing Hand. I know I used the kissing hand on the first day of school with my first graders. Anyway, Mrs. Raccoon is going to help Chester with some other problems. Okay? Chester the Brave by Audrey Penn and illustrated by Barbara L. Gibson. Chester the Brave. Make sure you let me know if it's too much glare, okay? I'm trying to hold the book just right. Chester the Brave by Audrey Penn and illustrated by Barbara L. Gibson. I don't think that Chester looks very brave right now. He's looking a little scared. This book is dedicated for Callie and Illa and Jude. Thank you to Danella, Matthew, Ryan, and Rebecca for listening to my story and telling me how to fix it. The changes make it much better. Love, Aunt Audrey. Oh, I like how she noticed and those people helped her make her story better. It's always nice to share with friends and maybe get some helpful comments. Okay. Chester Raccoon sat snuggled in his mother's lap. The last golden rays of sundown shone through their tree hole, and his younger brother Ronnie lay curled up fast asleep on the far side of their hollow. This is my very best time, Chester told his mother, lifting his eyes to her. This is my very best time, too, she told him sweetly. Do you still want me to tell you about the little robin? Yes, please. It's nice when we can get snuggles with the people we love. Well, Mrs. Robin began her story. He stepped up to the edge of his nest, bent his little legs, lifted his tiny wings, and said, I can't! I'm too afraid! And hopped back into the safety of his nest. He was too afraid to fly? Asked Chester. Yes, he was, answered Mrs. Robin. Do you see the little robin? Chester looked very worried. He drooped his head and stuck out his lower lip. Did the little robin think it was okay to be afraid? He thought it meant he wasn't brave, explained Chester's mother. You see, the little robin's brother and sister flew their very first time, and he thought that meant they were very brave, and if they were very brave, he thought it meant he wasn't. Chester appeared very upset. Was he right? He asked his mother. Nice little spider in the corner. Mrs. Raccoon smoothed out the fur on the top of Chester's head. Well, the little robin's father told him that it wasn't that his brother and sister were brave. It was the fact that they simply weren't bothered. Chester lifted his head and peered up at his mother. What does that mean? Mrs. Raccoon laughed. The little robin wasn't sure what it meant either, so his father asked him if he was bothered when he was eating worms. I think I would be bothered by eating worms. Not normal for us. Ooh, yuck, shrieked Chester. That's disgusting. What did he say? He said he wasn't bothered eating worms at all. He said he loved eating worms, especially the big, long, thick, stretchy kind. Oh, black, bleated Chester. His nose and his mouth twisted and squished together, and his entire body shuddered. Eating worms would bother me. Bother me, too. Would eating worms bother you, Taryn? Mrs. Raccoon nodded. It would bother me, too, she confessed. Then the little robin's father asked him if he was bothered when he was singing, and the little birdie began tweeting and said he wasn't bothered when he was singing at all. Nice musical notes there. My friend Tisha likes to tweet. Singing is a lot better than eating worms, grimaced Chester. I agree, said Mrs. Raccoon. Then the little bird's father told him that being brave wasn't about flying when he wasn't bothered to fly. Being brave was about flying when he was bothered to fly but found the courage to fly anyway because he knew he must. I'm going to read that again. I think that's a great way to think about being brave. I agree, said Mrs. Raccoon. Then the little bird's father told him that being brave wasn't about flying when he wasn't bothered to fly. Being brave was about flying when he was bothered to fly but found the courage to fly anyway because he knew he must. Then his father asked him if he was bothered when he was reciting his flying lessons in front of all the other little birdies who nested in our tree. The poor little robin got all aflutter. He hopped up and down and flapped his wings, just like he did the time the skunk sprayed our tree from down below. The little robin said that reciting his lessons in front of all the other birds was the worst thing he had ever had to do in his whole life. Suddenly, Chester began to tremble, and he nestled deeper into his mother's soft, comforting arms. "What's the matter?" his mother asked. Chester's looking afraid. "Reciting lessons in front of the other animals at Owl's teacher school is the worst thing I ever have to do in my whole life, too," he whispered. "Is that so?" asked Mrs. Robin. She gave Chester a reassuring hug and then took his tiny hand in hers and gently kissed the center of his palm. "Shall I tell you what happened to the little robin? Or would you rather jump on top of Ronnie and wake him up for school?" Chester giggled. "I want to know what happened to the robin." "I want to know. Do you want to know, Haley?" Well, the very next day, the little robin's mother tucked one of her own tiny flight feathers into his wing and told him it was for good luck. So even though he was still bothered about reciting his lessons, the tiny bird stood in front of all the other birdies in our tree and twittered. "I lift my head to the clouds, I push off with my feet, I flap my wings and let the gentle breeze take me for a ride." Gulp. And while he was still afraid to fly, he found the courage he needed and said to himself, "I am very brave." Then he stepped up to the edge of his nest, spread his wings, and pushed off with his feet and flew away. After all, he was a very brave little robin. "Hooray!" clapped Chester. "Yay!" "Do you know what I think being brave is?" asked Mrs. Raccoon. Chester shook his head. "I think being brave is about 3 little words. Think, tell, do. If you think you can, tell yourself you can, and do it." Mrs. Raccoon lifted Chester's head. "Can you see my kiss on your palm?" Chester laughed. "No." "Well, you know it's there, and it's for luck, just like the robin's little feather." Chester jumped off his mother's lap, bent his knees, opened his arms, and yelled, "I am very brave!" Then he ran to the other side of the hollow and with a flying leap landed on top of his brother. "Wake up, Ronnie, it's time for school. Chester the Brave has a speech to make." Look at his brother's face. Later that night, Chester Raccoon stood on a branch at Owl Teacher's school. He remembered what his mother said about think, tell, do. If I think I can't, I tell myself I can and do it. And he found the courage he needed to tell himself, "I am very brave." Then he opened his hand, and there, in the middle of his palm, was his mother's gentle kiss for good luck. And even though Chester was still the tiniest bit afraid, he recited his lesson in front of all the other animals. After all, Chester is a very brave little raccoon. I wonder about you, boys and girls, if you ever get nervous or a little bit afraid, especially if you're reading or giving a speech in front of other people. That can be very nervous. I sometimes get nervous for our circle time. It's true. Well, before we go, I thought we'd practice just a couple of our sight words. We have just a few more minutes. This word is before. Word before. Wash your hands before you eat. Big word. This one is because. Because. I love you because you're you. Don't ever forget that. The next word is down. D-O-W-N, and that's the way we get down. I always dance on that one. This word is here. We are all here today. Thank you for watching. This word is hear. I want to hear another story. Have. H-A-V-E, have. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.